and they've asked for his help as their books have been used online without their permission. Well, joining me now from Brighton is the best-selling novelist Dorothy Coomson, who signed that letter. Hello, Dorothy. Thank you for joining us. Now,
Hello.
You're particularly worried your work is among others that is appearing on a website called Library Genesis. Can you tell us about that and about what effect that has on you as an author?
It's not just that it's on Library Genesis, which is a very disingenuous name. It's basically a book pirating site. It's the fact that it's appeared on this 7.5 million books and 83 million non-fiction journals articles have appeared on LibGen, as it's called. It's the fact that AI tech companies have then scraped that information and used it to train their AI machines, which basically means that they have our books on their websites and in their software programs, basically using our work to train their machines and to make a profit.
You and your fellow authors are really worried about this. What are you calling on the government to do exactly?
Well, there's several things. One of the things is for Peter Kyle, who is my local MP, to actually acknowledge that something has been done to us. When we wrote to him, we explained to him that we were the victims of theft. Authors up and down the country, taxpayers, people who have a real stake in this country, have been stolen from, and the government hasn't acknowledged that. They haven't acknowledged at all what has been done to us. But also, on top of that, at the moment, Peter Kyle and the government have legislation going through Parliament that will weaken copyright laws. UK copyright laws are there basically now telling us that you can't use our work without paying us, without our permission. And this is what has been done to us. That has not been acknowledged, and they are wanting to make it easier for tech companies, AI and tech companies, to keep doing this.
Is there some responsibility that authors and creative artists need to take themselves? I mean, we are moving forward in technology. Is there something that the industry needs to do to protect itself?
Yes, and it's already in place. We have the UK copyright laws, which are in place, which say that if you want to use somebody's work, copyrighted work that they've spent years working on, then you have to pay them. You have to ask permission, and then you have to pay them. If I want to quote song lyrics in one of my books, I can't just do that. I have to go seek permission, and the person who holds the copyright has to give me permission, and they will ask for payment. Everything I do, all of my work, I have to pay. From the computer I use, the computer software, from the experts I talk to, I have to pay them, and that is part of my work. And so these companies who are coming along, taking our stuff and then saying, oh, please don't let us have consequences for stealing your things, it's completely wrong.
Thank you very much for that, Dorothy. Do stay with us while we have a chat about this. Claire, Dorothy mentioned theft there. You worked in the Home Office. Is this something that other government departments, not just science and technology, needs to be looking at and investing in?
I think it mainly does fall under science and technology, because you're looking at big tech companies, and to have legislation that enforces the right for authors or musicians to be able to be paid for their work, I think does fall under that. The Home Office, I think, would find it incredibly difficult to stick their oar in as much as they'd like to. But we are dealing with companies who are largely going to be outside of the UK's jurisdiction. So I worry about how this is going to be possible. But I do feel for anybody in the creative industry, having their work stolen that they have poured all of their heart and soul into is just mind-blowing that it's allowed to happen.
Stuart, how do we find a balance between technology advancing but also regulation being needed as well?
I think you're right. Regulation is what we need. We need an ombudsman. Disappointingly, the ministers have just stripped out some amendments by the Lords in a bill that's going through at the moment. That worries me. Clearly, we are looking at theft by big corporations from a group that generally, Paul McCartney aside, are really often quite poor. It's not a well-paid industry. So, we've got the rich stealing from the poor here. So, yeah, absolutely, regulation all the way.
Vince, we've got consensus on this. Dorothy's very unhappy. Many people are. Why is the Labour government not listening to them?
Well, look, we're going through the process of creating that legislation. One of my concerns is actually we're creating legislation in 2025 that may already be out of date, not because of anyone's fault, by the time it's finished. And actually you need something which is future-proofed. There's been over 11,000 responses to the consultation. That doesn't, get kind of chunted through overnight. You've got to look carefully at that. I've got confidence in Peter Kyle. I think he's a good legislator, a good Secretary of State. I think he'll be listening to everyone. And look, this is a massive issue. We had a session in Medway earlier this week. We had the 3 universities working with a charity to have a really wide conversation about how AI has got some really positive elements to it, but there are some absolute challenges. And actually this issue came up there, that people are concerned around how the creative industry in particular is really vulnerable as we sit here today. So we do need to make sure that the legislation, when it gets to its final outcomes, is in a place where Dorothy and her colleagues across the whole creative industry has more confidence than they did perhaps 2 or 3 years ago.
Claire, do you think we can give our creative industries confidence at the moment?
I don't think so, and it is incredibly difficult. And as Vince said, the minute you start creating legislation, it goes out of date. And we're working in a sphere that we don't really understand. AI and tech and government don't necessarily go together. So I think we need to look hard at what enforcement we can use, because there are copyright laws in place already, and as Dorothy has said, there is theft of belongings. But how you get these people when it's an online company and it could be set up abroad on a small island, how do you enforce those laws? And I think we need to actually look at that alongside any existing legislation for AI.
Stuart, do you think enough discussion is being had on this? What more would you like to see the government do?
I mean, clearly, as has been pointed out, it's a complex and evolving situation. So no, we're going to have to keep talking about it and make sure that we try to keep pace with the changing technology and the way that these companies are going to keep trying to steal from people.
Vince, do you think the government is being techno-aware enough, or do you think? I mean, we've seen a lack of regulation with the internet lead to some problems. Do you think they're doing the same thing now?
I think it's about recognising that, again, having asked for a consultation, having had so much response, again, I think for me that shows that they're in listening mode, and that's important. But one of the things I want to recognise, of course, AI isn't always bad, and I do think sometimes it can feel like a bit of a binary conversation. At Medway Council, we're rolling out a scheme called Medway 2.0. Social workers are now saving more than 5 hours a week through using magic notes, great name, to ensure they're giving better service to those receiving social care. So there are some really good examples where AI is making life better, both for professionals and service users. But of course, every sector is different, and for the creative industry, clearly the conversation needs to continue.
Let's go back to Dorothy briefly. He's been listening in. Dorothy, what do you think about what you've heard from the local politicians here?
I think the people who understand, and Claire and sorry, I can't remember the other guy's names. I'm so sorry. You understand that we are being stolen from. Vince, a bit disingenuous to say that we are behind in innovation. We had the consultation government document. We all filled it in. We all responded, but still legislation is going through at the moment. So the whole idea that you're listening is a bit disingenuous. And then the other idea that we are against innovation. We are not against innovation. We are not wanting to hold back progress at all. What we're against is people using our work for free without permission and then expecting us to be okay with that. As we all know, technology, it does change very quickly, but one of the things that is always true, it doesn't matter when it is, it's always true, is that they create a dependence, they give you stuff for free, and then once you're dependent upon it, it then becomes very expensive and costly. And
Dorothy, let's give Vince a chance to respond to that. Dorothy's saying you're disingenuous about this issue.
No, look, I think, and again, I recognise, people have got passion in this issue. So for me, it's about saying, actually, if you're creating legislation, you want to ask people, particularly in a new area, this is a new topic. There wasn't an AI piece of legislation 25 years ago. There is now. But the fact that there's been so much consultation response, it is right for government to take their time,